What are your greatest weaknesses is probably the most hated job interview question by candidates, but it is still being asked in many job interviews. The majority of job seekers are not sure how to approach this question. So in this video, I will share clear guidelines to help you structure your interview response and give you full answers and weaknesses examples to use. I'm Marat from EMMOTION, myemotion.com. Human Resources Consulting Agency. Look me up on LinkedIn. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, then definitely hit the subscribe button below and the little bell so you would get fresh new professional and personal growth content. There are several ways of answering what are your greatest weaknesses. I personally prefer rephrasing it to what are your greatest development areas. This way, it doesn't suggest or make reference to someone being weak in any way. It can also be asked in other similar ways. What would your manager or colleagues describe as your biggest weakness? Which tasks or duties do you struggle with the most? Which difficulties and issues have arisen in your current role? Is there any area of your skill set that you feel still needs work? From my experience working in recruitment for a long time, I tend to ask this question to candidates which make a big and noticeable effort in selling themselves during the interview. Sometimes they do it without even realizing it. For many hiring managers, it's interesting to hear candidates analyzing their development areas, to hear how reflective they are about their skill set. This question can trip a lot of people up, because no one wants to talk about the less impressive parts of their skills and personality. However, never say you don't have any development areas. I've had candidates saying this to me during the interviews, and the impact is exactly the same as saying that you don't have any ability to learn and to grow. This is the checklist of how to structure your answer before we proceed to full examples. Analyze your development areas. It should be a weakness related to your professional competencies and skills. Answers like, I don't do enough exercise, or I don't speak a certain language well, sound like you are trying to avoid the question. Don't try to disguise a strength as a weakness. Answers like, I work too hard, or I am a perfectionist. These are ridiculous because as a recruiter, you hear them every day. The hiring manager will easily see you through and might label you as someone dishonest. Be honest, but without raising any red flags. Giving an honest answer is really important here. If you make something up, you might not be able to handle the follow-up questions. Pick a weakness acceptable for the role. Don't say you are awful with numbers if you are applying for an accountant job, for example. Explain the measures you took to correct this skill. First part of your answer should reflect on how you detected this weakness. The second part should focus on how you have actively been working on it. The weakness should be something that you could improve through a personal effort. Here are a few examples which should be useful to you. Some of these can be easily adapted to your profile. There is also a bonus example for candidates without professional experience. Example for a position dealing with numbers and data. I never had much experience working directly with clients. That's why my client-facing communication skills definitely need some work. I'm much more comfortable digging into the data and providing the analysis rather than talking about it with a client. I realized that the experience of working with clients directly would be a big help to the way that I present my analysis, so I used every chance to take an opportunity and talk to a client, and I will continue to improve this area of expertise. Example which is more generic. At the beginning of my career, I was overwhelmed with the level and amount of work expected from me. Projects came all at the same time, and I didn't schedule and plan each of the stages properly. Eventually, this made me overlook certain mistakes which I detected further on. Since then, I attended a number of time management seminars and I have found my workload much more manageable. Each time I'm more productive and detailed, and I continue to work on it. Example which could be a case for many. Public speaking is an area which I should still work on. When I started college, it was a real problem. I was just terrified of doing it and I ended up ruining my speeches a few times. I decided to take a small step of promising myself that I would speak up in front of small groups, for example in a class. Then I worked up to taking a public speaking class, which made a big difference. Now, even though I get nervous, I feel like it is something that doesn't hold me back. Recently I gave a speech at a conference. I was still shaking during my speech, but it went great and I received a really good feedback in the end. I plan on continue to seek out opportunities to improve in this area. Example on being too direct. Sometimes I can be a little too honest when I provide feedback to coworkers. My personality is naturally straightforward and my colleagues really value that. However, I learned that there are times on the job when more diplomacy is required. I took a training class on how to communicate with power, and it really opened my eyes to the need of communicating differently with different people. So now I am much better at providing constructive and inspiring feedback, even though it doesn't always come naturally. And the bonus example for candidates without professional experience. As a student, I thought that taking as much responsibility as possible will help me learn and grow faster. Eventually, it turned into not delivering any of my projects on time. I was simply stretched thin in too many areas and not having enough time to deliver with quality. I learned that I'm not at my best when I have too many priorities. I'm now doing my best to reduce some of the less important extracurricular activities and focus on delivering my academic projects with higher quality. This ability to prioritize also helps me in my recent internship. I had several deadlines that were due last week, so I spoke to my supervisor to prioritize the delivery schedule, to focus on both the timing and the quality of the delivery. In the end, all 3 projects were delivered with great results. Keep it short and to the point. Practice a couple of times before the interview to make a stronger impact and to answer with confidence. Thanks for watching. For more information on professional and personal growth, subscribe to my channel below.